The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the suburban streets of Portland. I stood at the kitchen sink, my hands submerged in soapy water, scrubbing the remnants of dinner from the plates. The rhythmic sound of water splashing against porcelain was oddly comforting, yet it echoed the monotony of my life. 8 years of marriage had transformed into a series of predictable routines: cooking, cleaning, and waiting for my husband to return home from work. Each day felt like a replay of the last. Mornings began with hurried breakfasts, often silent save for the clinking of silverware and the occasional rustle of newspapers. Evenings settled into comfortable silence, punctuated only by the hum of the television as we both retreated into our own worlds. I often caught myself staring out the window, watching neighbors come alive as they engaged in their own lives, laughter and chatter filling their yards while I stood behind closed doors. The neighborhood buzzed with life. Children played outside until dusk while couples strolled hand in hand down tree-lined streets adorned with blooming flowers. I longed to feel that kind of connection again, but each time I tried to reach out to my husband, I was met with indifference. His mind seemed elsewhere, lost in work or his own thoughts. My gaze drifted outside just as a moving truck pulled up across the street. New neighbors were settling in, bringing with them an air of fresh possibility that stirred something deep within me. As boxes were unloaded and laughter spilled into the evening air, a flicker of excitement sparked inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. Days passed, and curiosity drew me to peek through the curtains as they unpacked their lives. A man emerged from the truck, a tall figure with dark hair and an easy smile that seemed to light up his face whenever he interacted with those around him. He waved at passing cars and exchanged pleasantries with other neighbors who stopped by to welcome him. One afternoon, while tending to my garden, a patchwork of wilting flowers, I noticed him standing at his fence, admiring my work. "You have quite a green thumb," he called out, his voice warm and inviting. "Thank you," I replied hesitantly, feeling a rush of warmth creep up my neck at his compliment. "I'm just getting settled in," he said casually as he leaned against the fence. "I'm hoping to make this place feel like home." "Portland has its charms," I remarked, surprised by how easily conversation flowed between us. We exchanged small talk about local art galleries and upcoming festivals in town, the very things that once brought joy to my life but had faded into obscurity over time. Each interaction felt like a breath of fresh air. It awakened something dormant within me. One evening after dinner, after another round of silence, I found myself wandering outside for some fresh air. The sun was setting beautifully behind the trees when I spotted him again on his porch, sipping coffee as he flipped through a book on local artists. "Mind if I join you?" I asked impulsively. "Of course not," he replied with an inviting smile. We spoke about art for hours, about our favorite local artists and hidden gems around Portland that we both cherished but hadn't visited in years. His passion was infectious. It reignited something within me that had long been extinguished by routine. As weeks turned into months, our conversations became more frequent and meaningful. Coffee breaks turned into long walks around the neighborhood filled with laughter and shared stories about our lives before settling down. It felt liberating to share parts of myself that had been buried under years of obligation. Then one fateful afternoon changed everything. He knocked on my door unexpectedly while holding a bouquet of wildflowers, an offering so simple yet so profound in its thoughtfulness that it took me by surprise. "I thought you might like these," he said shyly when I opened the door. I felt warmth bloom in my chest as I accepted them. They smelled sweetly earthy, a reminder that beauty still existed outside my front door. "Thank you," I managed to say before stepping aside to let him enter for coffee, a gesture meant purely for hospitality but charged with unspoken tension hanging between us like an electric current. We settled at my kitchen table surrounded by sunlight filtering through sheer curtains when suddenly there was an unexpected knock at the door, a sound that sent adrenaline coursing through me like ice water down my spine. "It's probably just a neighbor," he said casually as he sipped his coffee, but even he could sense something shifted in our atmosphere. A moment later came another knock, this time louder, and panic surged within me as recognition dawned. It was him, my husband, returning home early from work without warning. Quick! Hide! My voice trembled slightly as urgency propelled us both toward different corners of the room. The last thing we needed was for him to walk in on this moment unprepared. I darted toward the bathroom while he slipped behind a curtain just off to the side, the irony not lost on me as my heart raced wildly against my ribcage like a trapped bird trying desperately for freedom amidst chaos unfolding outside its cage. The sound of footsteps grew louder, dread pooled heavily in my stomach as every second stretched interminably until finally, I heard him call out from downstairs, "Honey? Are you home?" Time froze. Every instinct screamed at me that this situation would end badly if caught, but part of me couldn't help but wonder if perhaps this moment would change everything forever. And then came another knock. The bathroom door creaked open, slowly revealing him standing there, with those wildflowers still clutched tightly within his hands, just moments before everything shattered into chaos around us. The moment he stepped into the bathroom, the air thickened with tension. His eyes widened as he caught sight of me, a mixture of surprise and something else flickering across his face. I stood frozen, my heart racing, the bouquet of wildflowers now an anchor in this surreal moment. He stammered, glancing around as if looking for an escape route. But there was none. We were trapped in this small space, the walls closing in around us. I took a step back, my mind racing with thoughts of my husband and the impending chaos that would follow if he walked through that door at any moment. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted to surprise you," he replied, shifting awkwardly on his feet. "I thought maybe we could talk." Talk? The word hung heavy between us. My heart sank as I remembered the weight of my marriage, the conversations that had dwindled into silence over the years. The vibrant connection I felt with him was intoxicating yet terrifying. "Now?" I asked incredulously, glancing at the door as if it might burst open at any second. He nodded slowly, his expression earnest. "Yeah, now." The tension was palpable. I could feel my pulse in my ears as I weighed my options. Guilt clawed at me. How could I entertain this? But then again, what was waiting for me outside this door? A home filled with unspoken words and routines that felt more like chains than comfort? Before I could respond, another knock echoed through the house, a loud thud from the front door followed by muffled voices. My breath caught in my throat. It was him, my husband, returning early from work. "Shit," I muttered under my breath. His eyes darted toward the door before settling back on me, urgency flashing across his face. "What do we do?" "I don't know." Panic surged through me as adrenaline kicked in. My mind raced as I considered our options. "Hide," he suggested hesitantly. "Where?" The bathroom offered little in terms of concealment. It felt like a trap closing in around us. Before I could think further, another knock came, a louder one this time, and then the sound of keys jingling filled the air. My heart sank deeper into despair as dread washed over me. "Just act normal," I whispered fiercely as we both moved toward opposite sides of the small bathroom. The door swung open abruptly, and there stood my husband, his expression shifting from confusion to shock as his gaze landed on us both. The wildflowers slipped from his hands and fell to the floor like broken promises. "What is going on here?" His voice was low but edged with disbelief. I opened my mouth to explain but no words formed. Instead, silence enveloped us like a thick fog suffocating all reason and logic. "I can explain," he said suddenly, stepping forward instinctively as if to shield me from whatever storm was brewing outside this room. My husband's eyes darted between us, his confusion turning into anger within seconds. "You're cheating on me," he spat out incredulously. "No." I finally found my voice amidst the turmoil swirling around us. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? His tone dripped with accusation while pain flickered across his face. I took a deep breath and stepped forward to bridge the gap between us, a desperate attempt to reclaim some semblance of control over this spiraling situation. We were just talking, I said softly but firmly. It's not what you think. But even as those words left my mouth, doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest at a party. Was that really all it had been? Just talking? The neighbor shifted slightly beside me. Our shared glance spoke volumes about uncharted territory we had ventured into together without fully realizing its implications until now. My husband crossed his arms tightly over his chest, a defensive posture that only fueled tensions further between us three standing there in that cramped space. Talking? You call this talking? With every passing second filled with silence and uncertainty hanging heavily overhead like storm clouds ready to unleash their fury upon us all at once, I knew something had irrevocably changed within me during these past few weeks spent exploring new connections beyond mere friendship. It wasn't just innocent moments anymore. They had morphed into something deeper, a longing for intimacy that transcended physical boundaries while challenging everything I thought about love and loyalty along its path. I need you both to leave, my husband finally said after what felt like an eternity stretched thin between breaths taken too quickly or held too long without resolution found anywhere nearby. His words struck hard against fragile emotions swirling within each one of us present there. The pain etched onto faces turned pale against realization dawning heavy upon hearts still beating beneath layers built up carefully over years spent together navigating life's twists and turns. But, the neighbor began but faltered under pressure radiating off my husband's tense frame. It became clear there would be no easy way out now regardless of intentions behind actions taken earlier today nor conversations shared during stolen moments away from prying eyes watching closely nearby. I can't do this, I whispered finally breaking free from paralysis gripping tight around throat constricting any further attempts made towards explanation sought after desperately yet eluding grasping hands reaching outwards yearning for understanding instead met only by walls, erected high enough keeping everyone safely apart, even when standing so close physically unable truly connect emotionally anymore without risking everything already lost along journey traveled thus far together. As reality settled back down upon our shoulders heavy laden with guilt unresolved lingering doubts still hanging unspoken within air thickening around us, I turned away feeling tears prickling behind closed lids fighting back emotions threatening spill forth uncontrollably spilling secrets long buried deep inside where darkness thrived unchecked until now illuminated brightly under scrutiny cast forth by light shining down upon tangled web woven intricately binding lives together forever changed. After today's events unfolded unexpectedly before our very eyes leaving nothing untouched anymore. I'm sorry, echoed softly through silence enveloping room filled only echoes memories fading slowly away leaving behind nothing but shadows dancing quietly against walls bearing witness far longer than any single moment could ever hope capture completely without losing essence. Entirely lost somewhere a long way towards finding peace amidst chaos surrounding everything left unresolved still lingering beneath surface waiting patiently for chance arise once more before moving forward again towards brighter days ahead filled hope renewed once again despite everything happened thus far leading up until now. The air in the bathroom felt thick with tension as I stood, heart racing, caught between two worlds. One was the familiarity of my life, the routine I had settled into over the years. The other was an exhilarating but dangerous connection that had sparked unexpectedly with my neighbor. I glanced at him, his expression a mixture of surprise and something deeper, longing, perhaps? The bouquet of flowers he held seemed to tremble slightly in his grasp, mirroring the fluttering in my chest. I could still hear the faint sound of my husband's car pulling into the driveway, a reminder that time was slipping away from us. Your husband, he began, but I raised a hand to silence him. The last thing I wanted was to think about my husband right now. Just give me a moment, I whispered, panic rising within me. I could feel the weight of our secret pressing down on us both. My mind raced as I weighed the consequences of being found here together, caught in this fragile moment that felt both intoxicating and terrifying. Suddenly, he stepped closer, closing the distance between us. "I shouldn't have come in like this," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. But I couldn't help myself. I wanted to push him away. I wanted to tell him we needed to stop this before it went any further. But instead, something inside me shifted, a yearning for connection that had been dormant for too long surged forth. Our eyes locked as if drawn together by an invisible force. In that charged silence, our lips met unexpectedly. It was brief yet electric, a spark igniting a fire that had been smoldering beneath the surface for weeks. Before I could process what had just happened, the sound of my husband's key turning in the front door jolted me back to reality. "I have to go," I said quickly, stepping back as if burned by an unseen flame. The thrill of our kiss faded into urgency as guilt washed over me like cold water. "I'll text you," he replied quietly, his disappointment palpable as he retreated toward the door. "No. Just don't," I stammered, panic rising again as I pushed past him and rushed out into the hallway just as my husband entered our home. "Hey. You're home early." I greeted him with forced cheerfulness while trying to mask the turmoil churning inside me. "Yeah," he replied casually, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath my surface. "Traffic was light today." He dropped his briefcase on the table and moved toward me with an easy smile that felt so foreign now. I stood frozen for a moment before forcing myself to act natural. "Did you eat? I can whip up something quick." "Nah, I grabbed a sandwich on my way back." He leaned against the counter and looked at me closely. "Everything okay?" "Of course." My voice sounded too bright even to my own ears. "Just busy with, you know how it is." He nodded but didn't seem convinced. There was an edge in his gaze that made me uneasy. Maybe he sensed something off about me today, an instinctual awareness that perhaps even he couldn't articulate. As we moved through our evening routine, dinner preparations and small talk, I felt like an actress playing a role in a poorly written script where every line felt forced and unnatural. Every laugh shared felt hollow against the backdrop of what had just transpired. Every glance exchanged seemed heavy with unspoken words. After dinner, we settled onto our worn couch in front of the television while attempting to engage with whatever mindless show played on screen. My mind drifted elsewhere, back to those stolen moments with my neighbor and how alive they made me feel compared to this stagnant existence. "Are you even watching?" My husband's voice broke through my reverie as he turned toward me with concern etched across his features. "Oh. Sorry," I replied quickly, forcing myself back into reality while struggling against thoughts that threatened to consume me whole. "You've been distant lately." His tone shifted from casual observation to something more serious, a gentle probing into my soul that left me feeling exposed under his gaze. "I'm fine," I insisted too quickly again. It sounded rehearsed even in my own ears. He sighed deeply and leaned back against the couch cushions as if weary from carrying unspoken burdens himself. "If something's bothering you, you know you can talk to me." I swallowed hard but didn't respond. Instead, I focused on a spot on the wall behind him, a place where shadows danced in muted light like memories flickering at the edges of consciousness waiting for acknowledgement they might never receive. Later that night, after we crawled into bed, both physically close yet emotionally miles apart, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while listening to his soft breathing beside me. Thoughts swirled relentlessly around what had happened earlier, how easily intimacy slipped through fingers when one wasn't looking, or how quickly desire could morph into guilt when reality came crashing down upon fragile dreams built upon fleeting moments shared under cover of darkness. Sleep eluded me entirely until dawn began creeping through our curtains like an unwelcome intruder heralding another day filled with familiar routines devoid of passion or excitement, the very things that made life worth living beyond mere survival mode dictated by obligations alone. The next day dragged on endlessly without respite. Work stretched out before me like an unyielding desert devoid of refreshment or solace amid scorching sun beating down mercilessly upon weary travelers searching desperately for shade where none existed anymore. Only reminders left behind, echoing lost chances slipping away forever into oblivion, untouched by time passing swiftly onward, leaving nothing but shadows lingering behind. When lunchtime arrived at last, a welcome reprieve from monotony, I found myself sitting alone at a cafe table outside sipping coffee while observing people bustling about their lives all around me. Couples laughing easily together while families gathered joyfully beneath umbrellas shielding them from sunlight, warming everything it touched, gently reminding them life continued onward despite everything else happening beneath surface unseen. And then came a message, a simple text from him asking if we could meet later after work for coffee again today. A rush of conflicting emotions coursed through me. Excitement mingled dangerously with dread because what would happen if anyone saw us together? What would become of everything left unresolved, hanging precariously between choices made without thought given toward consequences? Yet despite all reason urging caution against such reckless behavior, urging retreat back toward safety net woven tightly around expectations set forth long ago, I typed out a response, almost instinctively agreeing without thought until it sent shivers coursing down spine, reminding once more how far removed reality felt now compared against vibrant possibilities waiting just beyond reach, beckoning forward despite fears, threatening pull backward, once more tethered firmly within confines created over years spent building walls meant only keep others out, instead allowing self-expression flourish unhindered. As afternoon wore on, slowly giving way toward evening twilight, casting long shadows across pavement below, reminding everyone change loomed ever closer, I prepared myself mentally for confrontation ahead, knowing full well decisions made tonight would shape future, irrevocably altering course set forth previously, leading somewhere unknown yet filled promise waiting patiently beyond horizon stretching endlessly outward, inviting exploration, daring adventure beckoning forth, daring souls willing venture beyond comfort zones established long ago. With each step closer toward meeting place chosen earlier this morning, anticipation mingled uneasily alongside trepidation, gnawing steadily away inside, stomach twisting knots tighter than ever before, creating tension palpable enough cut through air surrounding us. Both once arrived, finally standing face to face once more amidst chaos swirling around, unyieldingly demanding attention, diverting focus elsewhere, entirely leaving nothing untouched anymore. The moment I heard the front door click open, panic surged through me. My heart raced as I scrambled to find my clothes, the fabric feeling foreign against my skin. The bathroom, once a sanctuary of stolen moments and whispered confessions, transformed into a trap. The neighbor's eyes met mine, wide with surprise and concern. "Your husband is home," he said softly, urgency threading his voice. I nodded, breath hitching in my throat. "I can't let him see you here." He stepped back, retreating toward the door as I hastily pulled on my shirt. The fabric felt heavy with guilt and fear. I could hear the sound of footsteps approaching, his footsteps, and they were growing louder. "Wait," he said, reaching out to touch my arm for just a moment before pulling away as if stung by electricity. "We need to talk about this." "No time," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath as I pushed past him to the door. "Just go." I opened it just as he stepped into the hallway, his expression shifting from confusion to realization in an instant. The air thickened with unspoken words and tangled emotions. We both understood what this meant yet couldn't voice it aloud. "Savannah?" My husband's voice echoed from downstairs, breaking the fragile bubble that had formed around us. "I'm coming," I called back, forcing cheerfulness into my tone that felt completely false. My heart raced as I turned back to him, desperation clawing at my insides. "Just go," I urged again, this time more firmly. He hesitated for a heartbeat longer before disappearing down the stairs, leaving me alone with the weight of what had just happened. As I rushed to gather myself in front of the mirror, adjusting my hair and smoothing down my clothes, dread settled in my stomach like a stone. What had we done? The thrill of our connection was now overshadowed by fear of being discovered, the consequences looming large over us both. "Savannah?" My husband called again from below. I took a deep breath and descended the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. As I entered the living room, he stood there with his briefcase still in hand and an expression that shifted from weariness to something harder: suspicion? Concern? "Hey," he said slowly, eyeing me closely as if trying to gauge whether something was amiss. "Hey," I replied too brightly for comfort. He dropped his briefcase onto the couch and walked closer to me. "You okay?" His brow furrowed slightly. "Yeah. Just, you know how it is." I waved dismissively at nothing in particular, a gesture meant to brush away any lingering doubts hanging between us like thick fog. But he didn't seem convinced. His gaze lingered on me for too long before he finally nodded and moved toward the kitchen. "Dinner is almost ready." I followed him into the kitchen where familiar scents wafted through the air, comforting yet suffocating all at once. He busied himself with pots and pans while I stood there trying not to think about what had just occurred, or who was waiting for me outside our walls. "How was your day?" he asked casually over his shoulder while stirring something on the stove. "It was good, busy." The words felt hollow even as they escaped my lips. I could feel guilt gnawing at me relentlessly. He turned around then with an expectant look that made me uneasy. It was as if he sensed there was more beneath the surface than what was being said aloud but chose not to push further, yet. We shared small talk over dinner that felt strained under unspoken tension, a dance we'd perfected over years but now felt utterly foreign amidst everything that had changed so quickly between us all at once. Each bite tasted bland compared to how alive everything felt just hours earlier when we'd shared laughter and secrets in hushed tones behind closed doors away from prying eyes. After dinner ended without incident but filled with an uncomfortable silence stretching between us like an invisible barrier separating two people living parallel lives rather than sharing one together, I excused myself under pretense of needing some fresh air outside on our porch, hoping it might clear my head or bring some clarity amid chaos swirling around inside me, now threatening to spill out uncontrollably if left unchecked much longer. As soon as I stepped outside into cool evening air filled with scents of blooming flowers mixed with distant sounds of laughter from neighbors enjoying their own lives without knowing what turmoil brewed within mine, I leaned against railing trying desperately not think about how fleeting moments spent earlier had been, how intoxicating they'd felt while also being so wrong. A soft rustle broke through thoughts swirling around within. Turning abruptly toward sound revealed him standing there again, looking every bit as conflicted yet drawn toward me despite everything else happening beyond our control right now, threatening consequences neither could fully comprehend yet faced nonetheless. "I shouldn't have come back," he said quietly but firmly, stepping closer until only inches separated us again, reigniting flames flickering dangerously close, threatening ignite something far beyond either intended tonight. "No, you shouldn't have," I agreed reluctantly, knowing full well truth behind those words echoed louder than any spoken promise made earlier today held weight far heavier than both anticipated, carrying forward together into unknown future ahead, waiting patiently just beyond horizon, beckoning forth daring souls willing venture beyond comfort zones established long ago. Yet here we stood caught between two worlds, neither willing let go entirely while desperately clinging on to memories made together, even if fleeting moments shared would never be enough, fill voids left behind by choices made leading somewhere unknown, filled promise waiting patiently beyond horizon, inviting exploration, daring adventure, beckoning forth daring souls willing venture beyond comfort zones established long ago. What do we do now? His question hung heavily in air, laden with uncertainty, reflecting feelings mirrored within myself, searching answers hidden deep inside, heart yearning clarity amidst chaos swirling around, unyieldingly demanding attention, diverting focus elsewhere, entirely leaving nothing untouched anymore. "I don't know," came response almost like whisper, carried away by gentle breeze rustling leaves overhead, reminding us both change loomed ever closer, inevitable yet frightening all at once, leaving nothing untouched anymore. His gaze searched mine, seeking understanding, perhaps hoping answers lay within depths hidden beneath surface, where emotions churned wildly beneath calm exterior, masking turmoil brewing underneath, threatening spill forth uncontrollably if left unchecked much longer. Suddenly headlights swept across yard, illuminating space between us, casting shadows dancing along pavement below, reminding everyone choices made tonight would shape future, irrevocably altering course set forth previously, leading somewhere unknown yet filled promise. Waiting patiently beyond horizon, stretching endlessly outward, inviting exploration, daring adventure, beckoning forth daring souls willing venture beyond comfort zones established long ago. And then came sound familiar, echoing through night, breaking spell cast upon moment shared together, lingering still, heavy between breaths exchanged silently without words spoken aloud, revealing truths buried deep within hearts, yearning clarity amid chaos swirling around, unyieldingly demanding attention, diverting focus elsewhere, entirely leaving nothing untouched anymore. The doors swung open again, revealing figure standing silhouetted against light spilling out from inside house. A figure whose presence commanded attention, immediately drawing both our gazes like moths drawn toward flame, illuminating path ahead, leading somewhere unknown yet filled promise, waiting patiently beyond horizon, inviting exploration, daring adventure, beckoning forth daring souls willing venture beyond comfort zones established long ago. The air hung heavy with tension, a palpable reminder of the moment that had just unraveled. My husband stood there, his expression a mixture of disbelief and anger, while I fumbled for words that could explain the unexplainable. The bouquet of flowers lay forgotten on the floor, petals scattered like my thoughts. Who is he? The question cut through the silence, sharp and demanding. I could see the hurt in his eyes, a reflection of my own turmoil. My voice faltered. What could I say? That he was just a neighbor? A friend? Those words felt inadequate now. The truth was more complicated than that. Don't, he interrupted, shaking his head as if to dispel any notion of denial. I saw you together. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, a physical manifestation of the storm brewing within him. The weight of guilt pressed down on me. I didn't mean for this to happen, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could find some clarity. Clarity? He scoffed, disbelief coloring his tone. By cheating on me? Do you even understand what you've done? His words struck like arrows, each one piercing deeper than the last. I had sought something outside our marriage, but never anticipated it would lead to this confrontation. I'm sorry, I said finally, though the apology felt hollow against the backdrop of our shattered trust. Sorry doesn't fix this. His gaze shifted away from me, staring into the distance as if searching for answers in the fading light outside our window. In that moment, I felt trapped between two worlds, the life I had built and the new feelings stirring within me like an awakening after years of dormancy. My husband's pain was evident, it wrapped around us both like fog, thickening with every passing second. What do you want from me? He asked quietly after a long silence stretched between us. I don't know, I admitted honestly. I don't know what to do next. He turned to face me again, his expression softening slightly but still laced with hurt. Maybe we should talk to someone, a counselor or something. The suggestion hung in the air like an uninvited guest. Counseling felt like an admission that our marriage was broken beyond repair, yet also offered a glimmer of hope for understanding one another again. Maybe, I replied hesitantly, weighing my options carefully as if they were fragile glass ornaments poised to shatter at any moment. As we stood there in silence, my phone buzzed on the table beside me, a stark reminder of another life waiting just outside this tumultuous moment. It was a message from him, the neighbor, reaching out once more. Can we talk? The simplicity of those words sent a jolt through me as they echoed in my mind alongside my husband's pain-filled gaze. I need some time, I murmured almost instinctively when my husband looked at me expectantly. Take all the time you need, he said quietly before turning away again. The weight settled back onto my shoulders as if it had never lifted at all. My heart raced with conflicting emotions, guilt for hurting him and an undeniable pull toward what lay ahead with someone else who had become so significant in such a short time. Would meeting him again only complicate things further? Or would it help clarify where my heart truly belonged? As night deepened outside our home and shadows danced across familiar walls, I found myself standing at an emotional crossroads, each path lined with uncertainty yet beckoning me forward into unknown territory. With trembling fingers, I typed back to him, yes. The decision felt monumental yet terrifying, as if it carried consequences far beyond what either of us could anticipate. Would this choice lead to healing or further heartache? The next morning arrived too soon. Sunlight streamed through the curtains as if mocking my internal chaos. My husband had left early for work without another word exchanged between us, a painful reminder that silence could sometimes speak louder than any argument ever could. I sat alone at our kitchen table where laughter once filled every corner during breakfast routines now absent from our lives entirely. The coffee brewed slowly, its aroma wafted through the air but did little to soothe my racing thoughts or quell the unease settling deep within me. After several hours stretched painfully into midday, I finally decided to meet him at the neighbor, at our usual cafe down by the park where vibrant flowers bloomed despite winter's lingering chill still clinging stubbornly outside Portland's embrace. As I approached the cafe's entrance feeling both hopeful and apprehensive about what lay ahead, memories flooded back, the laughter shared over coffee cups filled with warmth and connection that seemed so effortless before everything spiraled out of control. Inside was familiar yet charged with anticipation. He sat waiting at our usual table by the window, his gaze flickering up when he spotted me approaching cautiously as if sensing how fragile this meeting might be for both of us now. "Hey," he greeted softly while motioning for me to sit down across from him, a gesture laden with meaning amidst uncertainty hanging thick in atmosphere surrounding us both now more than ever before. "Hey," I replied nervously while settling into my chair feeling exposed under scrutiny yet craving connection nonetheless despite everything else swirling around us dangerously close threatening disruption once again if not handled delicately enough. "What do we do now?" he asked after a moment spent simply observing each other's faces. The weight behind those words palpable even without elaboration needed because we both understood implications fully already without needing further clarification whatsoever anymore. "I don't know," came out almost automatically but held truth reflecting inner turmoil experienced recently since everything changed so drastically overnight leaving scars behind unwillingly etched into memories forever altering perspectives shared previously together too. His expression shifted slightly. A flicker of disappointment dancing across features before replaced by resolve instead urging forth determination pushing forward despite obstacles looming large ahead creating doubt lingering heavily still needing addressing directly instead avoiding confrontation altogether risking everything else too important not addressed immediately right now while opportunity remained present still offering potential pathways leading somewhere better eventually perhaps. Someday soon enough. "We can figure this out together," he offered gently reaching across table bridging distance separating us physically though emotionally remained miles apart still struggling reconcile past choices made recklessly without thinking clearly beforehand ever considering repercussions involved fully, beforehand impacting lives intertwined irrevocably forever changing trajectories once set forth initially without warning whatsoever leaving chaos behind everywhere left untouched otherwise. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the table where I sat, a cup of coffee cradled in my hands. My husband's voice echoed in my mind, his words from last night still haunting me. "We can figure this out together." The sincerity in his tone had been undeniable, yet the weight of our conversation felt heavier than ever. I stared at the steam rising from my cup, contemplating how to navigate the tangled web of emotions I found myself ensnared in. The truth was, I had been living in a fog for far too long, each day blending into the next. 8 years of marriage had turned into a routine that suffocated rather than nurtured. And now, with everything laid bare, I was left grappling with choices that could alter the course of my life forever. As I sipped my coffee, memories flooded back, moments shared with my neighbor that felt electric and alive. The way he listened when I spoke about my art, how he seemed to see me in ways I had long forgotten. But then there was my husband, standing by me through thick and thin, offering support even when I felt so distant from him. I needed clarity, I needed to confront these feelings head-on. The thought of meeting my neighbor loomed large in my mind. What would I say? How could I explain the connection we had forged? The guilt twisted inside me like a vice. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly time for him to be home from work. My heart raced as I considered reaching out to him instead of waiting for our scheduled dinner talk. Perhaps an impromptu conversation could shed light on everything swirling within me. But before I could decide on that course of action, a text chimed on my phone, a simple message from my neighbor asking if we could meet later that afternoon. My breath caught in my throat as conflicting emotions surged within me, excitement mingled with anxiety. I typed back an affirmative response and set down my phone, feeling both exhilarated and terrified about what lay ahead. What would happen when we met? Would it be a chance to clarify our relationship or merely deepen the confusion? The hours crawled by until finally, it was time to leave for our rendezvous at the park, a place where vibrant blooms mirrored the chaos inside me. As I walked along the path lined with cherry blossom trees, petals danced around me like whispers of possibility. When I arrived at our usual spot beneath an old oak tree, he was already there waiting for me, looking more handsome than ever in his casual attire. The sight of him sent butterflies fluttering wildly in my stomach. We exchanged nervous smiles before settling onto a bench facing the pond. "Thanks for coming," he said softly as he turned toward me. "I needed to talk," I replied cautiously. He nodded slowly as if anticipating what was about to unfold between us. "I've been thinking about everything," he began hesitantly. "About us." My heart raced at his words. This was it. We were finally going to address what lay between us openly and honestly. "I never intended for things to go this far," he continued, his gaze steady yet vulnerable. "But you've brought something back into my life that I thought was lost." His confession struck a chord deep within me. Those very sentiments echoed what I'd felt since our first encounter. Yet here we were, two people caught in a web woven from longing and guilt. "I feel it too," I admitted quietly, feeling both liberated and terrified by this admission. He leaned closer as if drawing strength from our shared vulnerability. "But what does that mean for you? For your marriage?" The question hung heavy between us like an unspoken truth we both feared confronting fully. "I don't know," I confessed, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes despite my efforts to remain composed. "I love him, he's been there through so much, but lately," my voice trailed off as uncertainty washed over me again. "Lately?" He pressed gently. "Lately it feels like we're just going through motions," I whispered, feeling raw and exposed under his gaze. He reached out and took my hand. The warmth of his touch ignited something deep within me while also reminding me of all that was at stake if we continued down this path together. "Maybe you need time," he suggested tentatively but firmly. "Time?" My voice wavered as doubt crept back into focus again, the fear of losing everything battling against this newfound sense of self-awareness awakening within me. "Yes," he replied earnestly. "Time to figure out what you truly want." As we sat there under the sprawling branches above us, nature's beauty contrasting sharply against our inner turmoil, I realized how pivotal this moment was becoming, not just for us but also for how I'd approach everything else in life moving forward. But then another thought struck me, the realization that perhaps time wouldn't allow any real answers or solutions after all. Maybe it would only complicate matters further until they became irreparable consequences set into motion beyond anyone's control entirely. With that realization weighing heavily upon us both, now hanging thickly around like fog rolling through trees nearby obscuring clarity altogether, my heart sank deeper, still knowing choices loomed large ahead, waiting patiently, demanding resolutions soon enough. Just then, amidst silence enveloping everything around us, a rustling sound shattered the moment as two children raced past, laughing joyfully, chasing one another, oblivious to all adult complexities unfolding nearby. Their innocence served only as painful reminders, once again reminding how life continued forward regardless, leaving behind remnants scattered everywhere without care. And so here we were, caught between past commitments made long ago versus newfound desires threatening everything else built over years spent together. My voice faltered again, struggling against emotions swirling inside, desperately trying grasp hold onto something solid amidst chaos erupting everywhere else around us now. And then suddenly, without warning, a familiar figure appeared, walking along path, approaching rapidly toward us both, breaking into view, unmistakably recognizable, immediately sending shockwaves coursing throughout entire body, instantly freezing time itself somehow. It was him, my husband, walking right toward where we sat side by side under oak tree, watching helplessly, unable to escape consequences already set forth, leading somewhere unexpected, perhaps even inevitable, ultimately awaiting resolution soon enough. The air thickened with tension as my husband approached, his expression unreadable. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, each step he took resonating in my chest like a drumbeat of impending confrontation. The neighbor shifted slightly beside me, his presence both comforting and unnerving. I had to make a choice, and quickly. "What are you doing here?" my husband asked, his voice steady but laced with an edge of confusion. He looked from me to the neighbor, the unspoken questions hanging between us like a fragile thread. I started, but the words caught in my throat. What could I say? That I had been seeking solace in someone else's company? That I had shared laughter and secrets that felt more alive than anything in my own home? The silence stretched out, thickening as we all stood there. The neighbor cleared his throat softly, breaking the tension. "I brought her some flowers," he said simply, holding out the bouquet as if it were a shield against the unfolding drama. "Just thought she might like them." My husband's gaze flickered to the flowers before returning to me, searching for answers in my eyes. "Flowers," he echoed incredulously. "After everything?" I could see the hurt behind his anger, a deep well of emotions that he struggled to articulate. This was not just about betrayal, it was about years of shared life collapsing into this singular moment of exposure. "Let's talk," I finally managed to say, glancing at the neighbor who nodded slightly before standing up. He stepped back slowly as if acknowledging that this was no longer his space to occupy. As he walked away, I felt an odd mix of relief and loss, a parting that felt like severing a lifeline while simultaneously acknowledging its necessity. My husband crossed his arms tightly over his chest, an instinctive defensive posture that only deepened my sense of dread. "Talk," he repeated bitterly. "What is there to talk about? You've been lying to me." "I haven't lied," I protested weakly. "I've been lost." The truth slipped out almost involuntarily, it was raw and unfiltered. "Lost?" His voice rose slightly, echoing through the quiet park around us. "You think running off with our neighbor is finding yourself?" "It's not about him," I insisted, taking a step forward as if trying to bridge an ever-widening chasm between us. "It's about what we've become." He shook his head slowly, disappointment etched across his features. "And what have we become?" I hesitated again, grappling with words that felt inadequate for the depths of our situation. "We've settled into this routine, it's suffocating." "Is that what this is about? A midlife crisis?" He scoffed lightly but didn't meet my eyes. "No." My voice was firmer now, tinged with desperation for him to understand. "It's about feeling alive again, something we lost along the way." For a moment, silence enveloped us once more as he processed my words. The reality hung heavy between us. Years spent navigating mundane routines had dulled our connection until it felt almost non-existent. I can't change overnight, he finally said quietly. You can't expect me to just fix everything. I don't want you to fix everything. My heart raced as I spoke honestly for perhaps the first time in years. I want us to figure out who we are now. His eyes narrowed slightly as if weighing my sincerity against past grievances, resentments woven into our marriage like threads in a tapestry fraying at its edges. What do you want then? His voice softened just enough for me to sense that there was still hope buried beneath layers of hurt and misunderstanding. I want honesty, I replied carefully, each word deliberate and heavy with meaning. I want us both to be honest about where we stand. He took a deep breath before nodding slowly, a sign that perhaps he too was ready to confront our reality instead of avoiding it. Then let's start there, he said finally, though uncertainty lingered in his tone. But just as relief began to wash over me at this small breakthrough, the unmistakable figure of our neighbor reappeared at the edge of the park path again. He looked hesitant yet determined, as if sensing something significant was unfolding between us. Maybe we should talk later, I suggested hurriedly when our eyes met across the distance, his gaze questioning yet understanding. Sure, he replied softly before retreating once more into the shadows of trees lining our neighborhood park. As soon as he disappeared from view completely, my husband turned back toward me sharply. What does he mean so much to you? I opened my mouth but found myself hesitating again. How could I explain feelings that swirled chaotically within me? A part of me wanted him gone from our lives entirely, while another part yearned for clarity amidst confusion, a resolution that would allow love back into both our hearts without fear or guilt clouding its essence. You don't understand. No. His voice cut through mine sharply, frustration evident on every feature of his face, now twisted by disbelief mingling with anger again, a dangerous cocktail brewing beneath surface tensions threatening explosion any moment now if not handled delicately enough. But even through all this turmoil, I couldn't deny something fundamental shifting inside myself too, an awakening perhaps fueled by these recent events forcing confrontation rather than avoidance. A reckoning long overdue where choices lay ahead waiting patiently on horizon beckoning brightly despite storm clouds gathering overhead threatening rain. We need time apart, he finally declared after what felt like ages spent standing there together trying desperately navigate murky waters swirling around us both while searching blindly for solid ground beneath feet slipping further away from one another each passing second ticking, loudly reminding us how fragile everything truly seemed right now. Time apart? My heart sank at those words. They echoed painfully against walls built so high over years spent building life together brick by brick, only now crumbling under pressure exerted from within, unable to hold weight any longer. Yes. His tone softened then, the hint vulnerability creeping back into voice almost imperceptibly but unmistakably present nonetheless, creating rift between two worlds colliding head-on without warning, leaving aftermath chaos behind. I'll go stay with friends tonight, he added quietly, almost hesitantly, glancing away, briefly staring off into distance beyond trees lining path leading toward unknown future awaiting both uncertain travelers embarking separate journeys seeking clarity amidst confusion, unraveling lives once intertwined tightly together. As dusk began settling down around us, I stood rooted firmly where planted, watching him walk away, disappearing, gradually fading silhouette swallowed whole by encroaching shadows enveloping everything surrounding, leaving emptiness behind, lingering heavy air-filled silence echoing unresolved questions, unanswered, still swirling endlessly within, mind racing faster than feet moving forward, escaping familiar territory, heading toward unknown realms stretching infinitely beyond sight. What awaited next remained shrouded mystery, cloaked, darkly veiled uncertainty looming ominously overhead, casting doubts, shadows creeping closer, threatening engulf everything unless faced bravely head-on without hesitation anymore. The air felt heavy with unspoken words as I stood alone in the dim light of my living room. The door had just closed behind him, leaving a silence that echoed louder than any argument. My heart raced, not from fear but from the weight of decisions that lay before me. I had spent years avoiding confrontation, allowing my life to drift along a predictable path, but now everything was shifting beneath my feet. The phone buzzed on the table, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from my husband. "Can we talk? I need to understand." A knot twisted in my stomach. His tone was calm, but I could sense the undercurrent of hurt and confusion. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to retreat into the safety of denial, but another part urged me to confront what had happened. I typed out a response, hesitating over each word. "Yes." "When?" The reply came almost instantly, "Now." With a deep breath, I gathered myself and headed toward the kitchen where he stood, arms crossed tightly over his chest. The tension hung between us like an uninvited guest. "I don't know how to start," he said quietly, his gaze fixed on the floor. I took a step closer, feeling the distance that had grown between us over the years. "I think we need to be honest with each other." His eyes met mine then, an ocean of emotions swirling within them. "About what?" "About you and him?" The accusation stung more than I anticipated. "It's not just about him," I replied softly. "It's about us, about what we've become." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. "So you admit it? You've been seeing him?" "Yes," I said firmly, yet my voice trembled slightly with the admission. "But it's more complicated than that." "Complicated how?" He leaned against the counter, trying to absorb my words. "I feel lost," I confessed. "I've felt invisible for so long in this marriage." A moment of silence passed before he spoke again, his voice low and shaky. "And what about our family? What about everything we built together?" "I don't want to destroy our family," I replied urgently. "But I can't keep pretending either." He looked away for a moment as if wrestling with something deep inside him. "What do you want then?" "I want clarity," I said finally. "I want to figure out if there's still something worth saving here." His expression softened slightly at my words, perhaps he understood more than he let on. "Then let's try counseling," he suggested cautiously. "That might help," I admitted reluctantly. As we stood there in that kitchen filled with memories, some sweet and others bitter, I felt an unexpected sense of relief wash over me. At least for now we were facing this together rather than apart. But just as hope began to flicker like a candle in the darkness, another message came through on my phone, a notification from social media displaying an image of him with friends at a local brewery celebrating some occasion together without me. My heart sank again as jealousy clawed its way back into my chest like an unwelcome specter haunting every corner of my mind. "Who is that?" My husband's voice snapped me back into reality. "It's nothing," I lied quickly but knew it was far from true. "Doesn't look like nothing." He stepped closer, tension crackled around us once more. "It's just someone from work." "Someone you've been spending time with?" His tone shifted again, accusatory yet tinged with hurt. "No. Not like that." The words burst forth before I could stop them. We both paused as if waiting for something monumental to happen next, a revelation or perhaps an explosion, but instead only silence enveloped us once more until finally he broke it by asking softly, "Do you love him?" My breath caught in my throat. The question hung heavy between us like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury upon everything below. "I don't know," I whispered honestly after what felt like an eternity, searching within myself for answers that eluded me even now amidst this turmoil swirling around us, both threatening to pull apart everything we'd ever known or believed in together. His eyes darkened slightly at my admission, disappointment etched across his features as realization dawned upon him. The truth was far messier than either of us wanted it to be right now. And then suddenly there came another knock on our door, sharp and insistent, interrupting our fragile moment before any resolution could be reached between us. My heart raced again, this time not just out of anxiety but fear too, because who could possibly be standing there waiting outside? As we exchanged glances filled with uncertainty and dread, simultaneously wondering whether this interruption would lead towards further complications or maybe even clarity somehow. I opened the door, slowly revealing the neighbor standing there holding flowers, a bouquet vibrant enough to rival spring itself, yet somehow feeling entirely out of place given our current situation unfolding within these walls. "Hey. Sorry if this is bad timing," he started, nervously glancing back towards where my husband still lingered nearby, watching every movement closely. In that moment everything shifted again. The air crackled anew, charged with possibilities both exhilarating yet terrifying all at once, forcing choices upon me faster than ever before. And as reality crashed down around us, all three standing at this crossroads in life where paths diverged leading toward unknown futures filled with uncertainty ahead.